I won't go through all of it, but it sort of says
canon. Is this canon now?
Yeah, I know. So Doctor Who's mythology is always shifting, as are the characters within it. I sort of used the Time War to tweak the legend of Omega. A lot of things said about Omega were not said in the original series. You have to accept that 40 years have passed. The Time War came along and everyone's history got changed. So that's what Omega is now. You can reinvent it. It's not defying the law, it's just adding to it. Russell reflects that this is similar to how our own history is often revisited and recontextualized over time. There was plenty of fuss made about Winston Churchill being in Doctor Who when there's plenty of history to suggest he wasn't such a good guy. And that's always the way. Our history of slavery, our way of walking through the world, is constantly being reanalyzed. So I like to think it's the same on Gallifrey. That's happened over the eons. Omega has been recontextualized and the story gets bolder and changes over time. We don't want to repeat the past, we want to push it forward. And after the devastating events during the final 20 minutes of the reality war, there's plenty of scope to push Doctor Who forward into new mythology, new legends, and new stories. So, yeah, you know, I'm going to have to start putting a lot of money in the swear jar now, aren't
I? Well, that's what did the toy maker say? Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, again, this is classic Russell T Davies in a T, isn't it? You know, it's like, right, okay, I'm going to rebadge classic characters and I'm going to fit them into my new era of the show, and they are not recognizable at all from what made them so iconic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going back to 1984. I'm going back to authoritarian regimes who don't like awkward truths. They just rewrite and erase.
Yeah.
Because this, you know, he's talking about Doctor Who, but then suddenly he's talking about slavery and he's talking about Winston Churchill. He's talking about icons. He's talking about real historical events, not just a sci-fi program. So suddenly you're going, all right, okay, here we go. You know, awkward inconveniences I can rewrite. To me, the first thing I want to say, John, is, and he did say this in the article, doesn't he? Yep. Because he had the Rani coming back and they were jumping around the stage, so to speak. Why did he need to bring another Time Lord back? And he had to think it through and all of it. Omega was just a plot device, and he was an awkward plot device because of his mythology, his power and status in the Doctor Who universe. So he had to be butchered. Oh, that's all right then.
Exactly. I think I agree with you. You know, again, you know, when he's talking about evolving the mythology and characters, you know, so basically his way of evolving it is to make him be a giant skeleton with a fat ass that can't get through a door, you know. So we've gone, mate. We've gone from this wonderful portrayal, you know, in the Three Doctors.
He had to take that helmet off to get through that sewer pipe. He had to take it off.
Yeah. If only he'd taken his trousers off, he might have got through that gate. Here, look.
If only he'd bi-generated into two skeletons. Or I don't know. It's just.
I mean, again, you know, it's, and you wonder why, you know, and you wonder why the show is struggling. You know, you know, when you talk about the past, you know, there's people that weren't fans of John Nathan Turner, but at least he respected the history of the show. You know, we've now got a guy who calls himself a Doctor Who fan that doesn't respect the history of the show.